Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, we're going to do another episode of Bytes and Nibbles with Breck today. Today we are going to prepare an Edisto tomato pie. This was sent to us from our friend Sue Myers. I've actually had it for a few months, but a lot of times with some of these recipes, I got to be in the mood for something. So I was looking through some of the past recipes I have received, and I thought that one looked pretty good, and we're going to produce that one today. So let's get going. So these are the ingredients of our Edisto tomato pie. Basically, we're going to start with a pie tin, prepared pie tin. Now this one kind of got broken a little bit in the store, and I didn't realize until I opened it up, but that's okay, it'll taste just as good. I couldn't find an actual regular pie crust, and so this is kind of a graham cracker pie crust. I thought that was the most neutral thing I could find. The other choices were pecan pie crust and chocolate pie crust, and I thought, nah, neither of those are going to work. So we'll try this and go forward with that. We're also going to need 5 large tomatoes, a large onion, some cheddar cheese. They say grated cheddar cheese. I couldn't find grated cheddar cheese, but I found a really finely shredded cheddar cheese, so we're going to go with that. Some salt and pepper, a little garlic powder, a little basil, and some mayo. Let's get going. Now there's a little bit of prep work that needs to happen before you really get into the guts of it. What they suggest you do is that you bake the pie crust for about 10 minutes at 375, and then you also have to slice your tomatoes and your onions. So I'm going to do both of those things kind of ahead of time, and then we'll catch up with the rest of the recipe in a few minutes. Alright, as I baked the pie crust, I kind of did a little bit more prep work. I've sliced up the tomatoes into thick slices. I sliced up the onions into kind of thinner slices. I've also taken my dry spices. That was the salt, the pepper, the basil, and the garlic powder. The garlic powder is to taste. It's a half a teaspoon each of the salt and pepper, and about 3 teaspoons of the basil. And I just put them in this nice little shaker jar, because what we're going to do is we're going to put a layer of each of the tomatoes and the onions, and then sprinkle a little bit of the spices on top of each layer. Now I'm thinking, because the tomatoes are kind of large, I might end up slicing each one of these slices in half a little bit, just to make them fit a little bit better. And in reality, because the tomatoes were so large, I didn't actually use all 5 of the tomatoes. I cut 4 of them, and if I need more, we'll do that. But what I'm going to do I'm going to start right now is I'm going to start putting the tomatoes and the onions on different layers, and then sprinkling them with the spices, and then we'll go on to another layer. So I'll catch up with you in a few minutes. Alright, I got my first layer of the tomatoes and onions, and like I said, I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it a little bit with some of the spices. And I think I was probably right not to cut all the tomatoes, because I don't think I'm going to have enough room for all of it, but we'll figure that out on the next layer. Yeah, kind of as I expected. I've only got about 2 layers on here, and I got a fair chunk of tomatoes and onions left over, so that's good. I'm not really an onion person, but I'll eat the tomatoes. There's no problem there. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to mix 1.25 cups of the sharp cheddar cheese slices, or grated cheese, and about 3/4 cup of mayo, and we're going to coat the top of that. Now, I'm going to augment this a little bit. You know me, I like things to be a little spicy, and I've actually pulled some jalapenos out of my yard, and I'm going to mix the jalapenos in with this, with the sauce that goes on top, because I think that'll add to the flavor significantly. Because what isn't improved with fresh jalapenos from the yard? Okay, so I've taken 3/4 cup of mayo and a 1.25 cups of the cheese, and I've also kind of mixed in my jalapenos, and I'm just going to kind of spread that over the top of this. Now I think I'm going to have to put a little bit of aluminum foil in the bottom of the oven, because I suspect that this is going to overflow a little bit, and we don't want to make a mess in the oven. But basically I'm going to start by just kind of spreading this over the top of it, and I think this is going to give it the real fire. You know, instead of putting aluminum foil on the bottom of the oven, which can sometimes cause problems with heating issues, what I've done is I've just decided to put a little aluminum foil in a cookie sheet and put the pie tin on the cookie sheet. So we're going to put this into the oven. We've already preheated the oven for 350 degrees, and we are going to cook it for about 35 minutes. So in we go. See you in 35 minutes. All right, 35 minutes have passed and we're gonna pull this thing out. It dripped a little bit. I guess I expected it to be a lot worse. Looks pretty yummy though. Smells good too. Now the recipe says let it stand for about 5 minutes, so we're gonna do that and we'll come back to this in about 5 minutes and give it a taste test. All right, it's taste test time. It smells pretty good, so I'm looking forward to this. I'll be honest with you. I think my decision to put the jalapenos in it was a good choice, and that really adds to the flavor, adds to the burn a little bit. But I like this. This is good. I would definitely try this again. I'd maybe do a little less of the onion, a little bit more of the tomato. But I think putting the 5 jalapeno peppers in it was a good choice. It really adds to the flavor, gives it a little bit of zing. I might also try and find a more neutral pie crust. I think the graham cracker crust it adds kind of a level of sweetness to it that I think maybe wasn't what was originally intended. So I would probably try and find something a little different on that level. But this is pretty good. I would definitely recommend this one. So I think that's all that I have for today. I'm going to put the recipe in the description below. Check it out if you feel like it. And until then, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Bon appetit.